What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We're going to be diving deep into UFC 283. Glover Teixeira going against Jamahal Hill, and we have a 15-fight card to talk about. I am here, as always, with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to talking some fights tonight?
Yeah, man, we got 15 fights to talk about on this card. There's a couple of them that probably won't happen, but still, that still leaves like 13 of them that we have to talk about here. And some interesting matchups. Got a couple of title fights. This main card is completely stacked. Going down to Brazil for this one, so we got a Brazilian in pretty much every single fight here, I think. So it's going to be a really interesting card to break down from a stats tape study perspective. Can't wait to get into it with you in the chat.
Yep, glad fights are back, but after this card, we have another week off for some reason. But we have 8 straight weeks after that, so lots of UFC coming our way. I do want to point out a couple things before we get started. If you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. That is always much, much appreciated. And then also, if you haven't already, be sure to become a member of Pub Sports Radio today. There's going to be some perks in the very near future that you're probably going to want to get in on. I think it's like $5 a month, $10 a month. So be sure to check that out and get on there. And let us shout out the chat. As always, we got Bob. First one in the chat, we got Victor in the chat. We have Kiwi, Mushroom, Propaholic, Free UFC Bet Picks. We got Andy Mush in the chat. Only one. We have Jay. We got Lou Betcha. And Lou Betcha cheering for the Giants. I see you there. We got Zach in the chat. We got J-Bone. What is up, everybody? David, I see you as well. Weezy, lots to talk about, so I think we should get right into it. And we should start with the very first fight on the card. We have Simon Oliveira going against Daniel Marcos. We got Simon Oliveira, 31 years old, 5'4", with a 72-inch reach. Marcos, 29 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. Marcos is 2 years younger. Marcos is going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Simon Oliveira is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had a split decision win on the Contender Series against Jose Alde, and then he had a decision loss against Tony Gravely in his UFC debut. As far as Daniel Marcos goes, he is going to be making his debut here after a decision win on the Contender Series. And yeah, I went back and watched Marcos. A lot of his fights are like from a while ago. Like he took a pretty big layoff between the Manzur fight and the Lewis fight on the Contender Series. I think it was like a 2-year, like 10-month layoff. And he showed up in the Lewis fight, and I thought he looked really good in that Lewis fight. I thought it was like a completely different fighter, and I was listening to them talk about him, and he was Marcus was saying how he had to kind of leave his family to go train and stuff, and it looks like it definitely paid off. It looked like a completely different guy, but the level of competition overall for Marcos is not great. The striking, like I said, it looked really good in that Lewis fight. I've seen him, wrestle and take, lower level guys down here or there. But overall, I'm just not, too impressed with either guy here. Simon Oliveira, very, very good grappler, but honestly, that's about it. His takedown defense is just horrendous. I mean, he has like a 31% takedown defense. I know Gravely's taking him down, but even outside of Gravely, like people are just taking this guy down easily. I know he's good off his back, but still, you don't want to be on your back here. And then, like on the feet, I kind of think Oliveira could have some success. But if Marcos shows up and he looks anything like he did in the Lewis fight, I think Marcos could have success in the striking. I also liked what I saw from the takedown defense in Marcos as well. And if Marcos wants to get takedowns, Simon Oliveira will just flop right over. So I think it's a close fight to start the card, kind of a sketchy fight to start the card. Two guys that I don't know if they're UFC caliber or not. Weezy, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, well, with Simon Oliveira, you got a Muay Thai striker, a lot of spinning back fists, high amplitude front kicks, jump knees. He keeps his hands high, and he throws to knock you out. Lots of big, wide, swinging hooks. Definitely not a point fighter, not a minute winner. He's looking to kill you, whether it's with the grappling or with the striking. He does his best grappling work along the cage. His open mat wrestling is super sloppy, but he finishes takedowns with his cage wrestling. And when his opponent puts his back up against the cage, he will hunt for his signature submission, which is a guillotine choke. So Simon's frantic style is not ideal for conditioning and pacing, and he will get tired as the fight goes on, but it's because he's explosive. It's not because he's got bad conditioning. He does have the cardio to push a pretty frantic pace. So it's going to be interesting to see how he looks late in this fight, because he throws 100% power into every single punch and kick that he throws, and he's constantly hunting for those guillotine chokes. So I like Simon's pace, and I like the fact that he really is a finisher. He's finished 16 of his 18 pro wins inside the distance, and his pro record in decisions is 2 wins and 4 losses. And he's never been finished as a pro either. So Simon loves going for that guillotine, and his striking is meant to knock you out. So he will lose minutes and give up control time off his back going for submissions and giving up takedowns while he goes for that neck. But he's confident losing minutes, knowing that he can finish you later as his opponents get tired, and he tends to keep pushing that crazy pace. Daniel Marcos is from Peru. His DWCS win was his first time fighting outside of his native Peru. The regional scene footage on Daniel doesn't tell us much, though. I mean, the competition is incredibly low level. The tape is mostly guys holding each other up against the cage. He's out there fighting in Peruvian parking lots. He showed good boxing in his DWCS fight, though, against Lewis. He outlanded him 74-41 at distance, and he stuffed 11 of 13 takedown attempts from Brandon Lewis and only gave up 160 seconds of control time on those 13 takedown attempts. Unfortunately, this fight tells us next to nothing because Daniel's opponent was very low level. He only had a 70-inch reach. It's a real show-me spot for Marcos because Oliveira is a well-rounded fighter. He's an experienced opponent with 16 wins and 18 losses and 22 professional fights. And he's got excellent conditioning, who looks to finish fights, and he can be dangerous wherever the fight goes. So Simon Oliveira's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He's got the overall and the UFC experience advantages. He's the way better finisher. He's definitely durable, as he's never been finished in pro losses. And he's got the grappling advantage here with the submission especially, and the significant the strength to schedule advantage. But Marcos is 2 years younger. He's 3 inches taller, and he's shown better UFC striking metrics thus far in comparison to Oliveira. Showed really good distance striking and great low leg kicks in his Dana White Contender Series fights. And Marcos should keep this fight close as long as he can keep it standing and make this a distance striking battle. But if Oliveira can get him down, we might see a big skill gap on the ground here in Oliveira's favor. I think Oliveira has the advantage. I like the experience, the strength to schedule, the grappling advantages here. So I think he's the likely favorite. I think he's sitting around minus 170 or so. And I think there's a good chance he could finish Marcos by submission here.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I'm not touching this fight. I'm actually going to go with Marcos just because I feel like he could potentially dictate where this fight takes place. If he does keep it on the feet, I think he's going to have the advantage there. But, who knows? Like you said, he's just fought nobody. But, man, did he look good in his first fight back after a pretty long layoff. The line is close. We have Simon Oliveira minus 158. Daniel Marcos is plus 138. This is a borderline like 1-800-gambler fight for me. Don't really have a strong lean on the fight goes or fight doesn't go. I don't think Marcos is much of a finisher. Yes, he's finishing these lower level guys, but he doesn't really have that killer instinct, it doesn't look like. So pretty simple pass for me. Sit back and watch this one. It kind of feels like a Contender Series fight.
Yeah, and both of these guys came from the Contender Series, and, we're going to find out a lot more about Simon. But, the fact that he went 3 rounds with Gravely isn't bad, man. And he held his own there. It's just that Gravely is a really good wrestler, and Simon's so willing to play off of his back that he just lost a ton of minutes in the grappling exchanges. But he was holding his own there. We really don't know what Marcos's grappling game lies here. I mean, what kind of potential he has at the UFC level to win minutes, to get takedowns, to go for submissions at this level. I think that Simon's going to have a clear advantage there. And because of that, because he's more experienced, because he's fought the better brand of competition as a pro, I think he's the rightful favorite here. But we're, like you said, I don't think I'll be betting this fight.
No, for sure. For pretty easy pass there. And there's a couple fights I just want to stay far away from, and we'll talk about those pretty soon there. All right, next we have the people's main event. We have Josiane Nunes going against Zara Farron. We have Josiane Nunes, 29 years old, 5'2" with a 67-inch reach. Zara Farron, she is 39 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Nunes is 10 years younger. Nunes is going to have a 6-inch height advantage or disadvantage, and then she's also going to have a 5-inch reach disadvantage. And I think it could be even bigger than that. I'm not even convinced Nunes is 5'2". She's like 4'11". But Nunes, she is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against, I believe it was Bay Maleki, went out there and knocked her out in the first round. Then she won a decision against Ramona Pasquale. As far as Zara Farron, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She is 0-2 in the UFC. She got finished against Megan Anderson by submission in the first round, and then she got TKO'd by Felicia Spencer. So what sticks out right away is going to be the fact that Zara Farron's ground game is just non-existent, and anybody with remotely any wrestling, any type of ground and pound, any type of submission game is probably going to finish her. The thing with Josiane Nunes, though, is I've never really seen her go for takedowns, but I would kind of like to see her do that. What Josiane Nunes does is she's kind of like a less handsome Jéssica Andrade, where she's going to just march forward and try to take your head off. And I think that does happen here. Nunes is a massive favorite, and typically I don't really want to lay this kind of chalk on a very low. Like, this fight's super low level, but it's hard to imagine Nunes not knocking out Zara Farron at some point in this fight. What I like about Nunes is how aggressive she is, like an Andrade. And then when she does hurt you, she's going to swarm with a 10, 15, 20 punch combination, try to get you out of there. I don't think Zara Farron is UFC caliber. Quite frankly, I think she's probably one of the worst fighters in the UFC. Now that Yizong Hu has left the UFC, I think Farron's now pound for pound probably the worst. And I think Nunes walks her down and probably knocks her out. Farron, her hands are low. Her head does not move. She's there to be hit, and Nunes hits very, very hard. So I like Nunes to win this fight by first round knockout. But she's a massive favorite, and that's enough to kind of scare me off. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight other than it being hilarious?
Yeah, it's hilarious, and there's a couple of hilarious things. First of all, Zara Farron, as little odds as the books are giving her to win this fight, there's even less of a percent chance that she shows up for this ass whooping. Because this is a very, very mismatched fight here. Zara Farron is horrible, absolutely horrible. I mean, you look at the numbers, right? She lands 2 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 6.6. She's given up 2 takedowns, but yet has been controlled for over 75% of the 7.5 minutes that she's been in the UFC cage. Got her ass shaved by Felicia Spencer, got her ass shaved by Megan Anderson, and then has basically refused to show up for any fights since then. And now she's going to go down to Brazil, go a 14-hour flight to show up to get her ass kicked by the Joe Benavidez in drag, who's going to absolutely kill her and destroy her. She's not showing up for this fight, so don't waste your time on it. This is Josiane Nunes all day if it does wind up happening. Zara Farron is so comically bad, and you don't make improvements at the age of 39, especially when you haven't fought in years and haven't shown up for she's had several fights scheduled since then. So this fight won't happen. Joe Benavidez all day here, and I'm still waiting for somebody to show me a picture, Brady, of these two in the same room at the same time. And as far as I'm concerned, that's on Benavidez, right? Because Josiane Nunes, if she is Josiane Nunes, it's not her responsibility to prove that she's not Joe Benavidez. It's Joe Benavidez's, responsibility. You've tagged him in tweets saying you're not fooling anybody. He's not fooling me either. He's not fooling anybody out here in our very sharp audience. Joe Benavidez, I'm challenging you to take a picture, prove that you can be in the same room at the same time as this Josiane Nunes, and I'll stop busting your balls. But I think this is you trying to make a comeback. And I won't be convinced of anything else until I see that picture and you tag me on it at MMA Weezy on Twitter. I want to see it.
Well, hopefully he gets it done, because I'm thinking the same thing, man. I think it's very unfair. Benavidez versus Farron, and she is, I want to say she's the second biggest favorite on the card. She's minus 525. Farron is plus 410. I mean, I can't argue that. I think Farron's just atrocious. So yeah, Nunes should win this fight. She should win it in the first round. The only thing that stuck out to me was the under 1.5. It was like plus 145. Now it's plus 120. It's just hard seeing Farron last 7.5 minutes against somebody somewhat good.
Well, she's lasted 7.57 minutes in the UFC, but that was against 2 different opponents. So, Yeah, 3.7 minutes per fight. And then Josie, I mean, she beat the shit out of Ramona Pasquale, Brady. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there's not a lot of women that would have been able to stand up to that kind of beating for 3 rounds. But Ramona did. But Zara Farron, not known for her durability, my friend, and not known to show up for fights either. So, let's not waste any more time on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I would not show up if I was her. I did see though she was like doing some training with Deiveson Figueiredo, which was interesting.
Zara Farron was?
Yeah, I saw her taking a picture with Deiveson.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's odd. I
that
didn't
is
even think
odd.
she trained MMA anymore.
She
I
probably
really
doesn't.
didn't. I just feel like this is all right. Look, you've passed this up like 7 times. We're
Yeah.
sending you down to Brazil to get your ass kicked by Joe Benavidez and Dragon. If you don't show up for this one, we're just flat out cutting you.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, what a mess of a fight. We'll see if it even happens. All right, Weezy, this is I don't know if you're gonna agree with this or not. This is my personal 1-800 gambler fight of the week. I cannot seem to get Warley Alves right. Warley Alves, he's one of the most inconsistent fighters I've ever seen. Warley Alves, he's 32 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Dalby, 38, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. Alves is going to be 6 years younger, and he's going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage. Alves is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, got knocked out by James Krause, had a knockout win against Sergio Moraes, a submission loss to Randy Brown, a knockout win against Lazez, and then a knockout loss to Jeremiah Wells. As far as Dalby, 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Alex Oliveira, a no contest against Jesse Ronson where he got club and subbed, a decision win against Daniel Rodriguez in a fight he lost, a decision loss to Tim Means, and then a decision win against Claudio Silva. So yeah, Warley Alves is frustrating to me. Sometimes he shows up and he looks incredible. His power is insane. He's a phenomenal grappler. Solid wrestling. He finishes guys, and sometimes he can go into the fighting and get late finishes like he did against Sergio Moraes. And then there's other fights where he shows up and he looks like crap. Once that fight hits the second round, he has nothing left. Like he's so inconsistent. But this is a matchup where he's going to be 6 years younger. He's very dangerous. He's going to be the more dangerous fighter in this fight. And I can't possibly bet Warley Alves because it's one of my rules. My rule is don't bet on fighters with questionable cardio. And we saw it last night, right, with Punahele Soriano. This is a guy that slows down after every first round. And look what happened last night. Warley Alves has slowed down after multiple first rounds. So although I'm kind of tempted on him, how can I trust him if he's probably going to slow down after the first round? So I have no interest in this fight whatsoever. I think it's close and competitive. I think both guys have their advantages. Dalby's going to have the cardio advantage, the durability advantage. And typically I would like betting violence in an Alves fight. You see his last 5 fights have finished inside the distance. He has not been to a decision in a long time. It's had to have been like about 5 years since he has been the distance. But I don't really want to bet a violent spot in a Dalby fight where it's the complete opposite. Dalby's going to decision. He's never lost by finish outside of the Ronson fight, and he's not finishing anybody. So kind of a weird clash of styles in that aspect, but just a big giant pass here for me, Weezy. Curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because Dalby's one of these guys that's virtually impossible to finish. He did get finished by Jesse Ronson, but then it turns out Ronson was topped up on goofballs. So I don't know if like somebody that's not, roided up can finish this dude. And if you don't believe me, I've told you some stories about legendary Danish toughness in the past, Brady. And this guy is Danish tough, but it's the Ross Houston fight. Nick Dalby versus Ross Houston in Cage Warriors some years back. Each one of these guys donated about a quart of blood. The fight was actually stopped and made a no contest because the entire canvas was covered with blood and neither fighter could get any footing. And both guys had been absolutely slashed open. I mean, if Dalby didn't quit in that fight, he's never, ever going to quit. And you look at how tough this dude is. It's going to be Warley Alves' only chance to stop him is via submission, via that guillotine choke that he has. And Dalby could absolutely break Warley because, like you said, Warley does not have good conditioning. And once he kind of goes past that initial blast where he's so dangerous, he gets finished. He's been finished in 3 of his 5 UFC losses. And And Worley's finished 6 of his 8 UFC wins. So definitely this is a guy who's finishing inside the distance a lot at the UFC level. As a matter of fact, Worley's fights, 13 UFC fights, 9 of them have finished inside the distance for almost a 70% finish rate. But Nick Dalby, all 9 of his UFC fights have went to decision. And he has kind of like that distance karate striking style, kind of like a point fighting style. So if you don't go and push the action with Dalby, you'll stay at range and wind up in a point fighting contest where he does okay. It's an interesting fight, man. But Dalby's 38 years old. We don't like that. But Alves gets finished a lot. It's Alves who actually has more UFC level experience. He's definitely the far more powerful striker. Neither one of these guys has been particularly defensively responsible. 51% striking defense for Alves, 54% for Dalby. Alves has been the better minute winner with his wrestling, getting 52% of his takedowns, out-controlling his opponents 25.5% to 17%, while Dalby is attempting about as many takedowns as his opponents, but he's got 17.6% control time for, and he's allowing 29% control time against. So, it looks like Worley's probably going to have to go to the grappling if he wants to be the better minute winner here, because Dalby lands as many significant strikes as he absorbs, but it's Alves who's getting outlanded 3.63 to 3.07. So, and also Alves' opponents throw more volume than he does, while Dalby outvolumes his opponents. So there's a lot of little statistical advantages here in the striking for Dalby, but then there's also some nice statistical advantages in the grappling on the Alves side. So like you said, dude, it's a close fight. And when you look at the strength of schedule too, both of these guys are getting great wins. Both of these guys are fighting good competition. I'd say Alves' strength of schedule just a little bit better, but still, man, it's a close fight. And I think you might want to play finish only for Worley Alves, and then maybe a decision only for Nick Dalby. I think those are 2 solid plays. But yeah, this was probably one I'm going to stay away from as well.
Yeah, even the finish only scares me because what if Alves completely gasses out? This is just a sketchy fight. I'm gonna pick Alves just because I think he's going to land the harder shots. I think he has all the wrestling upside here. I just can't trust this guy, to be honest. So we see a kind of interesting line movement on this one though. So Worley Alves opened up -110. He was sitting at about +150, +145. He is now -120. Nicholas Dalby opened up -110 and went to -180. -190. He is back up to +100. So the line kind of flipped recently. I saw Probaholic got Alves at +145. So yeah, we'll have to see where this line goes, but I don't know. I just don't want much to do with this one.
Yeah, neither do I, man. I mean, you can always depend on Dalby's durability, and you can always depend on how explosive Worley Alves is. But, it's kind of like the immovable object against the irresistible force, Can Alves be the first person to finish Dalby? Is Dalby durable enough to deal with that initial fury that Worley Alves brings to the cage early? Everything he throws early in a fight is designed to kill you. Every submission attempt is designed to make you die. So, it's going to be interesting to see here because Nick ain't getting any younger. He's got a lot of miles on the tires, and Worley Alves is very explosive early. It's still only 32 years old. So, yeah, I think I'm leaning Alves here, but I'm going to be staying away, I think.
Yeah, just a weird stylistic matchup. All right, next we have a very fun matchup. We have Ismael Bonfim going against Terrence McKinney. We have Bonfim, 27 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. Terrence McKinney, 28 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. Bonfim is 1 year younger. McKinney is going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Bonfim is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win on the Contender Series his last time out. Terrence McKinney is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Matt Favola, won that fight by like a 6-7 second knockout. He submitted Fares Ziam in the first round. He lost to Drew Dober by knockout in the first round, and then he submitted Eric Gonzalez in the first round. Terrence McKinney quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters. This guy is very fun to watch, and I think he's improving as well. I mean, this guy's striking's crazy. I went back and watched the Dober fight. He has so many tools on the feet. His kicks are very hard. He has those knees, and even dropped Dober with one of those knees as well. I think he has some of the best power in the division. Like, McKinney's power is insane. And I think for Bonfim to win this fight, he's going to have to just absolutely walk through fire. If this fight does get extended, I do have to favor Bonfim. I do have to pick McKinney, though, to get the early finish, but I'm not betting it. I like the under here. Terrence McKinney has been under in 17 fights. He's been under in 16 out of 17 fights. He did go to the third round once, but I think somebody's getting finished here, whether it's McKinney either getting the fight down to the mat, finding the sub, or just simply knocking out Bonfim. Or if the fight does get extended, I see Bonfim kind of taking over and finishing McKinney in his own right. So I like violence here more than anything. I'm not betting a side. I don't have confidence in a side, but I will take McKinney to get the early finish, probably within the first 2.5 minutes. Weezy, probably one of the best fights on the prelims here. How do you feel about this one?
I mean, how do you not like a Terrence McKinney fight? You know, if you don't like this dude, watching this dude's fights, it's time for you to try another sport, maybe curling, maybe ice skating. Something in the Winter Olympics. Cross-country skiing might be something you would enjoy if you don't like Terrence McKinney fights. So, but I think the most important question that needs to be answered in any Terrence McKinney fight is, what is the durability of Terrence's opponent? Because if it's not legendary, Terrence is going to fucking kill you in the first round pretty much every damn time, Brady. The only guy to survive Terrence McKinney, at the UFC level is Drew Dober. And then we also had Sean Woodson on Dana White Contender Series win via a jump knee knockout in that fight. So if you can't get past that early fury that McKinney brings out there for the first 2.5 minutes, you're going to lose. And we do see Bonfim has been finished in all 3 of his professional losses. But when you dig a little bit deeper, they're all by submission. 2 of them were about a month apart in the year 2011. What were you doing in 2011, Brady?
I don't even know.
Yeah, right? I mean, 2011, I don't know. That was a fog for me as well, But either way, it was so long ago. And then the submission that happened after that to Bonfim was at the hands of one Renato Moicano. So we don't really know. And that was in 2014. So this guy hasn't been finished in 8 years. So is Ismael Bonfim durable? That's something we need to ask ourselves, because he better be. Because the way Terrence comes out, he's got so much power and so much explosiveness on the feet, but he doesn't even need to depend on that. This guy has got excellent wrestling, very good submission grappling. It's just that you can't fight at the pace that Terrence McKinney fights at for long, before completely emptying your gas tank. So we're going to find out how durable Ismael Bonfim is. But my opinion is that he's not durable enough to handle Terrence McKinney. And I'm one of these people that still keeps thinking I really want to see Terrence McKinney in the third round at the UFC level. I think that if he's the much better grappler, and he might be, I mean, Bonfim has lost all 3 of his matches by submission, and he's known for his excellent boxing. So if there's an area where Ismael is deficient at the UFC level, it's going to be with that grappling and wrestling, and that's going to be tested by Terrence. So I just would love to see Terrence in a third round. I think we'd find out so much about him and about what his ceiling could be. Because if Terrence can find a way to win some minutes with his wrestling and grappling and win 1 or 2 decisions at this level, it really makes him a very dangerous, well-rounded fighter with a very high ceiling, because that's been the only thing he's shown that he hasn't been able to do yet, because the wrestling's there, the grappling's there, the submissions are there, and the power and the explosiveness and the speed on the feet are all there. The one thing that we're just missing is the ability to win minutes over a 3 round span. We have not seen that. And with Ismael Bonfim, you got a guy who 36% of his pro wins are by decision. This guy is undefeated in decisions. So great stylistic matchup for McKinney here and for Bonfim here, because Bonfim, if he can get through that early storm, is probably going to be able to stop some takedowns and win minutes on the feet with his boxing. But if he's unable to do that, Brady, I think we all know how this one ends. And that's with Terrence McKinney with a first-round finish.
Yeah, I do think Bonfim is pretty durable, but I just don't think it matters really. Drew Dober is one of the most durable guys in the UFC, and Dober almost got finished a couple times by McKinney. So yeah, I think McKinney kind of runs through him here. I parlayed up the under 1.5 rounds at -195. It's now -207. The fight doesn't get the decision as -635, and I have a feeling FanDuel's going to put it at like -1500, like they did with like the Al-Hassan fight last week. So, yeah, McKinney fights equal violence, and that's kind of what I'm on. Looks like money's coming in on Terrence McKinney as we speak, though. McKinney went from a +1, he was like -103, -103, 105 to now -125, and Bonfim is now +105 there. So McKinney's slight fave.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's the more experienced guy at the UFC level. He's definitely the better grappler. And, he's got ridiculous power. But like I said, we're going to find out a lot about Bonfim here because, not getting stopped by Andre Augusto and Rangel Desa and João Neto and Ivan Hayes and Nariman Abasov. None of these guys are Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney is explosive. So I can't wait for this fight, man. Any Terrence McKinney fight is worth the price of admission. So really looking forward to this one.
Same here. I'm actually kind of surprised it's so far down on the prelims too, but it is what it is. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Cody Stamann going against Luan Lacerda. We have Stamann, 33 years old, 5'6" with a 64-inch reach. Lacerda, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 73-inch reach. Stamann, 3 years older. Stamann with a 1-inch reach, 1-inch height disadvantage and a 9-inch reach disadvantage. Lacerda's 5-0 in his last 5 fights, all of those coming by sub. Cody Stamann is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Had a decision win against Brian Kelleher, a decision loss against Rivera and Davaloshvili, a submission loss against Said Nurmagomedov, and then a knockout win against Eddie Wineland. And yeah, I went and watched Lacerda. He's a very good grappler, black belt in BJJ. I just think he does a couple things that I don't think are going to work at this level against someone in Cody Stamann who's fought, the who's who. He's fought Aljamain Sterling, guys like Merab, guys like Syed. And that's kind of, giving up position for submissions there. He's pulling guard, he's flopping to his back, he's rolling for legs. And it could potentially work against Cody Stamann here. Stamann has been subbed twice, but and we got subbed by Said Nurmagomedov and Aljamain Sterling there. So I get why Stamann's a pretty big favorite here. I got to pick him to win. He's fought the much better competition by a mile, and I do think he has more paths to victory. All he has to do is really avoid that sub. I kind of think Lacerda is sub or bust here. With that said, though, I will be taking a look at Lacerda by sub, depending on what it is, and also the finish only for Lacerda. Cody Stamann has 11 UFC fights. Only one of those came by finish, and it was against like a 40-year-old Eddie Wineland, right? So I think that there is a finish in this fight. It is going to be Lacerda, so I might be taking a look at that finish only. He has about an 88% finish rate, all those coming by sub, I think. And like I said, Stamann has been submitted twice. So give me the finish only for Lacerda, but as far as a straight pick, I got to go with the more experienced, the guy that's fought the better competition, and that is going to be Cody Stamann. But curious to see what Lacerda brings to the table here.
Yeah, he the film on the guy is good. It's good, the guy's got clearly a really, really slick grappler, and we've seen Cody Stamann kind of get toyed with on the ground when you get him there, right? The Brian Caraway fight, it took Caraway, I think Caraway was 1 of 19 or 1 of 21 on his takedowns, but that one takedown he did get, man, he was this close to finishing Cody. And then you see Cody get finished by Sterling, get finished by Saeed with a front choke. But Cody's got really good takedown defense. So I think that, in order for Luan to get this into his world, he doesn't necessarily need the takedown, but he's going to have to try to take his back standing. He's going to have to try Imanari rolls. He might have to try to pull guard. Anything that he can do to get this fight into his world. The last fight that I saw from Lacerda, I believe was the Marcelo Alves fight. It was the most recent LFA fight that he had. And Lacerda was telling the announcers, like, I want to show off my striking now because With Lacerda, you've got a guy who's 12-1. He's 10 of those 12 wins are by submission. And the other ones that he's not submitting guys, it's because he's winning on the ground. He's not really a striker. So he's trying to improve that part of his game, and he's supposedly getting better at it. And if he can round out that part of his game, Brady, with a 5'7" in the and a 73-inch reach at this level, he's got some length. If he can figure out how to keep people on the end of his punches and win a minute here or there on the feet, or get his opponent's respect on the feet, it's going to make that grappling game flow much easier, and he's going to be able to find entries into it much easier. What my worry is for Lacerda is, if he is that pure grappler, is this going to look like Paul Craig versus Volkan Ozdemir, for instance? Like if he can't get the takedowns, how does this fight look? Because you see Stamen in there winning boxing matches against good strikers, going out there against a guy like Brian Kelleher and just boxing him up, Eddie Wineland, I mean, like, obviously they weren't on the same level and Wineland's washed up, but you can see that Cody's very comfortable pressuring dudes, working them with some good power shots to the body. He's a good boxer. He's got good takedown defense. He's got all the tools to make this look easy. And I think Lacerda might have to get a little bit creative to find ways that, I think he might have to pull guard. I think he might have to go for an Imanari roll or something here, because I think he's going to be frustrated because he doesn't have the wrestling background that Stamen does. He has not fought even close to the same level of competition as Stamen, and he's not even close in terms of being able to strike with this dude. So I like Stamen quite a bit here. But the second Lacerda gets this thing to the ground and gets into an advantageous position, the Stamen bettors are going to be holding their breath, because this guy Lacerda is legit on the ground, and he's very slick, and he finishes fights with submissions.
Yep, I agree. Stamen, pretty big favorite, opening up -174, currently -350. Lacerda opening up +149, currently +285. So big favorite for Stamen. I won't be touching the Stamen line. I will pick him to win, but like I said, I'm going to be looking out for that Lacerda sub prop.
Yeah, and it's going to be fat because Stamen is such a big favorite. With Lacerda sitting around +275 on the money line, the sub prop, which is 83% of his win equity. And I don't think, as a professional, and I don't think, he even has 17% decision equity in this fight. I think it's probably even less than that. So if you're on that Lacerda side, the sub prop's probably going to be the best way to play it, because I don't see him winning enough minutes on the ground to winning a decision here. I think he has to get a sub.
Yeah, I think it had to be sub as well. All right. And someone in the chat said Lacerda's a bum. I don't know about that.
Dude, he finished Rowley and Paiva.
He's not a bum then.
Yeah, he's not a bum. The guy is a very good submission grappler, but if you don't let him get it to the submission grappling, he looks very average.
Yep, we'll have to see what happens there. Next, we have a fight that is not going to happen. Why do they keep doing this, Weezy? Like, this has been announced, 4 or 5 times now. We got Jailton Almeida, Shamil Abdurakhimov, the very handsome Shamil Abdurakhimov. We got Almeida, 31 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. Shamil, 41 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. Almeida, 10 years younger, same height there. And then Almeida's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. So like I said, this fight probably doesn't happen. Shamil just keeps pulling out, whether it's an injury or this or that, visa issues. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Shamil makes the walk here. If he does, he probably gets destroyed in the first round. I mean, Shamil, man, I think they hate Shamil. Look at this. He got knocked out by Curtis Blades, got knocked out by Chris Daukaus. They fed him to Sergey Pavlovich, got knocked out by Sergey Pavlovich, and now they're giving him to Jailton Almeida. I really do think the UFC hates Shamil Abdurakhimov, and it's a shame here. Jailton Almeida, 19 fights, 17 wins, all 17 of those wins coming under 1.5 rounds. The under 1.5 is -350. -350 for the under 1.5 rounds. And yeah, I think, Almeida does finish this and probably in the first round as well. I think it's going to look a little bit like the Blades fight where Blades is able to take down Shamil, just really do it every once. And I think the same here with Almeida. Almeida should be able to take down the very handsome Shamil and eventually finish him, whether it's a grounded pound, a sub. Shamil's now 41 years old at this point. Tons of injuries he's dealing with. Remember he had that punctured lung or whatever he was dealing with a couple of years ago. Just terrible matchup for Shamil, and I don't blame him for pulling out. I mean, it's a very tough matchup for Shamil here. So yeah, give me Almeida, but the dude's a -1,000 favorite, Weezy.
Yeah, as he should be. I mean, this fight's not going to happen in two different ways, Brady. Number one, Shamil doesn't show up for this fight. And if he does show up for the fight and get in that cage, that's not going to be a fight. It's going to be a prison rape. All right? The 41-year-old punctured lung Shamil Abdurakhimov, who at this point in his career is just a pretty face, and he's got 47% takedown defense. And he's going to stop a guy in Almeida who's got 75% takedown accuracy in over a 4-fight sample size, that this guy is controlling his opponents 80% of the time that he's been in the UFC cage. I mean, where does Abdurakhimov win this fight? He would just have to land a laser-like right as Almeida shot in for a takedown. And that's the thing about Almeida. It's not like he toys around on the feet at all. That dude is shooting in the first 10 seconds. He doesn't fuck around. He doesn't pretend to be anything other than what he is, which is an ass-shaving machine and a grappling machine, a submission, grappler extraordinaire at this level that looks like he was carved out of marble. So, yeah, this is a bad spot for Shamil. I mean, this is kind of funny because you think, like, why would Jailton Almeida agree to fight a guy in Shamil Abdurakhimov again? A guy who's pulled out of something like 9 out of his last 12 fights. And the answer probably is, Brady, hey, look, nobody else is going to fucking fight you. I mean, that's the only reason that I can think that Almeida's camp would be like, look, we're moving on. The only reason that you would be stupid enough to take this fight again, and Shamil's not going to show up. It's one thing when you have fighters that can't make weight. Shamil's a fucking heavyweight. This guy doesn't have to cut weight. He's just not fit to fight anymore. He's a 41-year-old man with 7 MMA losses on his career and 5 losses at the UFC level where he's getting knocked out savagely by Curtis Blades. In the Dawkins fight, he got knocked out in the first round. The ref let it go to the end of the first round. And then he got up off the stool like 20 seconds after the first round ended and started wandering around the cage like some person in an old folks home who has no clue where they are anymore. And I mean, like, and then he got out there and he got knocked out in the first 30 seconds against Dawkins in the second round. And then Sergey Pavlovich, a guy with an 84-inch reach that looks like a Russian super soldier, just knocked him out. Shamil's not fit for this. This is elder abuse. Why are they letting this happen?
I don't know. It's sick. I mean, who's sanctioned this fight? Who's sanctioned?
I don't know, man. Who did that? Who sanctioned Mauricio Shogun Hua to get back in the cage again? What is happening with the elder abuse on this card? It's unacceptable.
I mean, at least they gave Shogun a kind of a bum, but I mean, he still probably loses. Oh, it's wild, man. But yeah, this line. I mean, if we were talking like who's more handsome, it'd be Shamil -1,000.
Yeah.
But since we're not talking that, we're talking fighting. We got Jailton Almeida -900 on Bet Online. I see -1,200 already. And I imagine the line just keeps getting wider. I think people are going to, for some reason, put it in parlays, kind of like the Umar fight. I think we're going to see a very, very wide line here. And I can't say anything about it. Almeida should roll here. But like you said, this fight isn't going to happen. But yeah, these violence numbers are crazy. Of course, the under 1.5 should hit, but -350 for the under 1.5. Oh my gosh. The fight doesn't go to decision is -1,000 on 5 dimes. So it's going to be -3,000 on FanDuel. We might see the widest fight doesn't go to decision line ever, Weezy. This is crazy.
And it's still not wide enough because it's still leaving like less than 1% of cushion where you're because it's 100% outcome, you know, that it does finish, you know, you're still getting a 1% edge. But yeah, like it's kind of funny, you know, we always talk about how, like, look, you can't bet minus 800, minus 900, minus 1,000 lines. You just can't. This is like one where it feels like this should be about minus 2,500, not minus 1,000. So yeah, man, I can't wait to see Jailton again, and hopefully Shamil shows up, or hopefully they can find, after Shamil does pull out, they can find, you know, a Brazilian with no concern for his own safety. I think the only guy stupid enough to fight Jailton after this is going to be Sean Strickland up at 205. He'll be like, I'll take the fight.
Could you imagine?
You know, and go out there and get mauled.
I think the only one dumb enough to take the fight would be like Jared Vanderaa, but he got cut, unfortunately. Maybe they'll bring him back for this fight.
And he's trying to cut down to 205 and get to stack up some regional scene wins. Get some help, Jared Vanderaa. Get some help. And by help, I don't mean somebody trying to get you to cut down to 205. I mean, stop fighting.
Might be time to hang him up, Jared. And Jay Ellis.
Yeah, him too.
All right, next we have the other Bonfim. We have Gabriel Bonfim going against Munir Lazzez. We got Bonfim, 25 years old, 6'1", with a 72-inch reach. Lazzez, 35 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. Bonfim, 10 years younger, same height, and Lazzez with a 4-inch reach advantage. Bonfim is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He has, I believe, a 100% finish rate in all 13 of his wins. He's undefeated. Lazzez is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Abdulrazak Alassane, came in as a really big dog, won that fight by decision, looked good, and then everybody was super high on Alves. Everybody was betting him, and then he lost in like the first 30 seconds against Warley Alves with the body shot, and then he bounces back and gets a nice win over Angelusa and wins that fight by decision. Yeah, Weezy, Bonfim, this guy looks really good. He's dangerous. He's a finisher. He's dangerous really everywhere the fight goes, but I feel like Lazzez could be getting counted out here a little bit. Like Lazzez, his durability is off the charts. He took a lot of hard shots against Alassane, which is why I thought it was kind of weird getting finished in the first 30 seconds against Alves. But you know, I think he typically does have very good durability. I like the striking, the volume of Lazzez landing over 7 significant strikes per minute. I think he's a pretty good fighter, but man, there's a lot of hype on Gabriel Bonfim, and the guy looks like a complete killer. So Weezy, should be a very fun fight here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's wild, man. This guy Bonfim, it looks like the sky's the limit, right? I mean, only 25 years old, 13-0 with 13 finishes, 77% by sub, 23% by knockout. And he's a really opportunistic submission grappler. And then when you see him on the feet, you're like, yeah, wow, he's long. He's got good Muay Thai form to him. And then with Lazzez, you know, you got a really well-rounded fighter there in Lazzez who's got nice striking, good grappling game, good takedown defense, is giving up less than 10% control time on 7 takedowns in 32 minutes, 7 takedown attempts in 32 minutes. So he's given up about 3.2 minutes of control time on 7 takedown attempts and 2 successful takedowns. Munir's he looked fantastic against Angelusa. And, you know, Lusa's a good fighter, too. He just showed a nice win in his last UFC performance. So it's going to be interesting to see now that Bonfim is stepping up here. Because when you look at the names, you know, Moacir Rocha, Mario Barreto, Brenner Alberth, Eduardo Garvon, Trey Waters, you know, we've got to see a higher level of competition here as, you know, Lazzez is fighting Al Hassan and Warley Alves and Angelusa, and then Sasha Palatnikov on the regional scene. I believe he was the UAE Warriors champion or the Brave champion before coming to the UFC. So, you know, I think Lazzez probably should. What is the line on this fight, by the way?
Lazzez like minus Bonfim is like minus 180 and Lazzez is like plus 155.
Yeah, so that's a lot of hype on Bonfim, but you know, like the tape is fantastic. So this is a great fight. I'm really looking forward to this one because I was really impressed by Lazzez and the durability and everything that we saw. But you know, sometimes when you see somebody that's durable, you always got to remember that durability is up here more than it is down here in the body. I mean, you get hit in the liver, you're done. It doesn't matter how tough you are. You know, if your calf shuts down, if the nerve shuts down the bottom half of your leg, you can't fight like that. So, you know, Bonfim is going to have to try to get this thing to the ground in order to have a big advantage over Lizez. But Lizez has got good takedown defense, good all-around fighter, and I think he should be the better striker here. But, 10-year age gap is a big deal, Brady, and all that hype on Bonfim. But I think that the Bonfim bettors might be a little bit disappointed if they find out that Bonfim doesn't yet have UFC-level wrestling in order to get this fight to the ground, should he not like how it's going on the feet. And I got a feeling he might not like how it goes on the feet because Munir is really good at distance.
Yeah, he's a very good striker. I was kind of thinking maybe violence, considering Bonfim's never seen the scorecards, but they're all over. It looks like minus 185 for the fight doesn't go to decision. A little bit too chalky for my liking. Because like you said, Bonfim's never been finished, and Lizez is a very, very durable guy. So I don't really want to touch that. I would lean Bonfim, but I can't lay minus 180, minus 200 here on him. I think Lizez is a very good fighter in his own right, very well-rounded guy and a phenomenal striker. So I think Lizez might be getting counted out a little bit, but it's hard to pick against Bonfim. The guy just looks like the real deal to me.
Yeah, like to me too. So this is a great card because we do have some really interesting prospects early in this fight. We got a couple early in this card. We've got a couple of fights that really should be fun ass kickings. If Zara Farron shows up for her ass kicking and Shamil shows up for his ass kicking, we're gonna have some fun watching some asses get shaved early in this one. But we're also going to find out a lot about these Bonfim brothers. That's going to be some really great fights.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun card. A couple weird matchups, a couple weird ones, but mostly a lot of very fun matchups and a very good card overall for a pay-per-view. All right, next we'll move on to the next fight. Is this fight really this high up on the card, Moisés Costa?
Well, that's what they have it on UFC stats. I don't know why, but Thiago Moisés has headlined a card before, so I don't think you're really going to put him at the bottom. So maybe that's why. But this is what UFC stats has as the order right now.
Well, sounds good. We got Moisés. He's 27 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. Costa, 26 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Costa 1 year younger. Costa with a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Moisés is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Bobby Green, a decision win against Alexander Hernandez, a submission loss to Islam Makhachev, a knockout loss to Joel Alvarez, and a submission win against Christos Giagos. As far as Costa, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So I didn't get to this one yet, Weezy. I'm going to tape this one tonight, but I know you watched some Costa. I did see, though, that there was only like 2 fights available of the guy. So did you find out anything about this Costa guy? I do know a lot about Moisés, but I know Costa's taking this fight on somewhat short notice.
Yeah, somewhat short notice. Junior Melo and Italo Gomez in LFA were the fights that I watched. And Costa got a really nice finish against Junior Melo, and he got a decision loss against Italo Gomez. It was a very, very close fight. Could have went either way, but this guy Costa, he's a southpaw. He's got decent stand-up, a decent clinch game, and a decent wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. He looks to be pretty solid everywhere, but spectacular nowhere. But he's got good size for the division, and he's very experienced. He's only 26 years old, but he's got 24 professional fights, 180 minutes in the cage, and he's been doing this for 9 years. So looks like he probably turned pro around the age of 17. But it's Moisés who has the high-level experience. 108 minutes in the UFC cage in 10 UFC fights. He's been in there with guys like Makhachev. The combined records of the 4 men who beat Thiago Moisés at this level is 37-8. 37 wins and 8 losses. So the guys that are beating Thiago Moisés at this level have phenomenal records. And with Costa, I think he's going to be a good test for Thiago, because the one thing we've seen about Thiago is that he can keep it close on the feet, but the takedown game, it's okay. 8 takedowns in 10 fights, 1.11 takedowns per 15 minutes. I mean, he's the kind of guy who might only need 1 takedown when he does get them, because his submission grappling pedigree is excellent. But this guy Costa's been around. He's not a complete he's not out of his depth on the ground, and he's already fought Italo Gomez, who's a very good submission grappler in his own right. So I think this fight could play out kind of close. especially if Thiago is unable to get this thing to the ground. Melquizael Costa is a southpaw. He's got decent power, and he does vary his weapons when he is striking. So it should be an interesting fight, man. You know, I mean, like when Moisés gets those step downs, he usually does look pretty good. I mean, like he dominated Christos Thiagos in the last fight, and he's had some really good performances against guys when he's able to get them to the ground, and there's a skill gap there. But this guy Costa is not bad. So, I mean, I think this line might be a little bit wide here, but I'm picking Thiago Moisés to win this fight.
Yeah, I just saw the line. Looks like Moisés opened up -300, went down to -400, currently back up to -300, and then Costa's plus 250 there. So, yeah, Moisés decent size favorite. No props yet. And any early lean on the over/under, or if this fight's going to finish or not?
Well, let me look at my prop template because that always gives me some really good data. And we only have UFC data on Thiago Moisés, and his fights have finished inside the distance 5 of 10 times. Moisés as a pro, 12 of 22 finishes. Melquizael Costa, 15 of 24. So these guys are finishing as pros about 58.7% of the time and 50% of the time at the UFC level. So I would expect a violence line to come out around a pick'em probably, and I won't be touching it.
Fair enough.
Lean is probably to the over, but I don't think I'm going to be touching it.
Sounds good to me. I'm going to look into that one tonight. All right, next we will move on to another newcomer, another guy coming in on short notice. We have Bruno Ferreira replacing Brad Tavares, going against Gregory Rodrigues. We have Rodrigues, 30 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. Ferreira, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Same age there, but Rodrigues is going to be much bigger with a 5-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Rodrigues is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Dusko Todorovic, knockout win against Jung Young Park, decision loss to Armin Petrosian, knockout win against Julian Marquez, and a knockout win against Chidi and Jaquani. As far as Bruno Ferreira, he has 5-0 in his last 5 fights, all by finish. Bruno Ferreira, a 100% finish rate in all 9 of his wins, and Bruno Ferreira has also never been over 1.5 rounds. I think he's been to the second round maybe once. I went and watched all the tape on Ferreira, and one thing I noticed is the majority of his finishes come on the mat. You know, whether he's getting a takedown or a knockdown, when he's getting these finishes, it comes by ground and pound. And he has phenomenal ground and pound, and he has a little bit of a submission game as well. I just really struggle to see him taking down someone in Gregory Rodrigues, who has a very good takedown defense, who's a legit black belt in BJJ, just doesn't choose to use it. I just struggle to see Ferreira getting Rodrigues down to the mat. Rodrigues has looked phenomenal lately in terms of the striking. I mean, knocking out Julian Marquez is not an easy thing to do. Knocking out Jung Young Park is not an easy thing to do. And I love that he showed toughness in the Chidi fight, where I think he ate like a big knee in the first minute of that fight, and he came back and finished Chidi down the stretch. Both of these guys are very dangerous. I just think Gregory Rodrigues is more dangerous on the feet, whereas Ferreira, he's very dangerous with that ground and pound. I don't really see him ending up there. I like Rodrigues to knock out Ferreira and probably do it early. I think both these guys are going to stand and bang, and I like Rodrigues to get it done. Looks like Rodrigues is a pretty big favorite already. I'm going to be looking at violence. There's no props out yet, but I do lean towards the under 1.5, where the fight doesn't get the decision depending on where it's lying. But yeah, this should be an absolute banger here no matter what.
Absolutely, man. Where did the line open? Because I didn't have a line before the show started.
Rodrigues opened up as a -400 favorite. He's currently -350, and then Ferreira's +285 right now.
Okay, yeah, you know, Gregory Rodrigues is fantastic. Still only 30 years old. He's going to be 5 inches taller, have a 3-inch reach advantage. He's got 8 more pro fights, 85 more minutes in the pro cage, 5 more UFC level fights, and about 49 more minutes in the UFC cage. So this is a big time experience advantage here, size advantage here for Rodrigues. Ferreira taking the fight on short notice. Rodrigues will be the far better stand-up striker here. And, you know, Rodrigues has stopped all 4 takedowns attempts that have been against him. He's given up only 7% control time out of 50 minutes. So that's about 4 minutes of control time that he's given up. And, you know, Ferreira's a Hulk, dude. That's his nickname is Hulk. They call him Hulky. And he's built like it. You know, both of these guys are built like they've been saying their prayers and taking their Flintstones vitamins, Brady. There's a lot of muscle that's going to be in the cage for this one. So they better make sure that those fences are bolted down tight and ready to take care of some weight running into them, because these guys are huge. They're strong. They have a lot of power. This was one where I was like, oh, no matter what, Rodrigues opens up like minus 400, no matter how good his opponent is. But when I watched the tape on Ferreira, guy's good, man. He's going to be a problem for a lot of people. He's got a lot of power. The conditioning seems to be pretty good too. I mean, we don't really see him going to decision at all, but because he's finished all 9 of his pro wins. But the guy looks good out there. He's got a lot of power. He wrestles pretty well. When he gets on top, he's an absolute problem. But I think you broke it down really good, man. Is that Gregory's going to be the better striker here. He's got the reach advantage and the height advantage. He's definitely, been in there striking with really good boxers like Jun Yong Park, Armin Petrosian, an excellent kickboxer, Chidi Njokuani, fantastic kickboxing pedigree. Even Dusko Todorovic is very dangerous on the feet. So it's just that we got to remember, we did see Gregory Rodrigues get knocked out by Jordan Williams up at 185, and Ferreira packs a punch. So, nothing's for sure. But this guy Rodrigues has just been in there with much better competition. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion at the purple belt level. He's shown to be a very competent kickboxer at the UFC level. And he's also shown that if he doesn't want the fight going to the ground, he absolutely can keep it standing. Ferreira taking the fight on short notice, less experienced, shorter, 3-inch reach disadvantage, and his best chance to win this fight is going to put Rodrigues into a place where he's very comfortable, and he's been very good avoiding when he wants to. So yeah, it looks like it should be Rodrigues however he wants it, but this guy Ferreira is no joke, and this should be a really fun fight.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked somebody stepped in on short notice to fight Rodrigues, but yeah, shout out to Ferreira for doing so. So yeah, I'm gonna see what the over under is set at, but I would definitely lean towards the violent side of things, and I'm gonna go with Rodrigues here. All right, let us move on to is this the 1-800 Gambler fight of the year thus far, Weezy?
Oh, dude, like this is one where you and I will be showing up to people's houses. If there's a ring on the doorbell and you bet on this fight, you're probably going to get something plunged into your neck and wake up in a padded room in the 1-800 Gambler cells, because I am not going to be happy with anybody that thinks that they have an angle on this fight.
Because there is no angle. We have Shogun, who, man, he's 41 at this point. He's 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. Potieria, 26 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. We have Potieria, who's going to be much, much younger by 15 years. He's also going to be bigger with a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Shogun is 2-1 draw in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Tyson Pedro, a draw against Paul Craig, a decision win against Nogueira, a knockout loss to Paul Craig, and then a split decision loss in one of the worst fights I've ever seen, and against OSP his last time out. As far as Potieria, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had a knockout win on the Contender Series, and then made his debut against Nikolai Negumereanu and lost that fight by second round knockout. So this is a case where we have someone in Shogun, legend, who is just he's washed. Simple as that. He's looked awful, just awful for a while now, for a couple of years. I'm shocked he's even still going at 41 years old. I mean, he looked awful in the OSP fight, looked awful in the Craig fight. He won the Nog fight, but he looked awful in that fight. He looked awful in the Craig draw. So he's looked washed for a while now, and he's still going. And then we have Potieria, who I'm getting fraud vibes, man. I mean, he has fought like very, very, very questionable competition. The one time he fights somebody remotely okay, he got knocked out by Nikolai Negumereanu. Man, I don't know. And then on top of that, we got to lay minus 200 on Potieria here. It's just a big pass for me. What I would do, if anything, would look towards violence, just because Potieria, when he is winning fights, it is typically inside the distance. I think he has like 16 wins, something like that, 15, 16 wins in the very first round. I think he should go out there and starch Shogun, but we saw Potieria gas out bad in his last fight, and if this fight does get extended, it's gonna get ugly. So I'm gonna take Potieria first round knockout, but you probably won't see me with a bet on this fight, especially from a money line and laying minus 200 on this guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is so bad, dude, because I'd be interested, you guys that are watching right now, honestly answer this question in the chat. If you're excited to see a legend in Mauricio Shogun Rua fight again, put 1. And if you think it's a really bad idea that he fights, put 2 in the chat and just hit enter. 1 if you want to see Shogun fight, and 2 if you're like, I don't know why they're doing this, right? So when you got a legend, somebody that's done as much for the sport as Shogun Rua, it's such a disservice to bring them back into the cage when they're clearly so far past their prime, it's not even funny. And then in order to, and you're saying to yourself, all right, maybe it's the retirement fight, but we were saying that the first Paul Craig fight like 2.5 years ago, we think he's going to retire after this one, but they keep letting him go. And I don't understand why they do this, And then it's like, because he's so bad, because he's so washed, because there's no skill left and he's so far past his prime that you literally have to scrape the bottom of the barrel in a guy like Ihor Potieria, where if Harry Hunsucker was available, they probably would have matched him up against Hunsucker. They're desperate to try to get him a win, but it just washes his legacy even more when it's like that you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get this guy an opponent that he even has a small chance of beating. And here's Shogun in his home country, fighting in front of his home fans who love this man. And you got a bum that's making a 10,000-mile flight to get to this one, and he's going to be a minus 200 favorite against this guy Shogun Rua. What if Shogun shows up and is even the slightest bit motivated? He probably wins this fight. That's how bad Potieria is. Potierria's got 33% takedown defense, Brady. He's been controlled 42% of his UFC cage time, okay? And that's in 2 fights against Lucas Sadolski and Nikolai Negamariano. These are guys that would get body bagged, by Shogun 6 years ago when he was 35 and over the hill. So I don't know why they make fights like this, man. It's so bad. And my suggestion would be, like, there's probably fights left on Shogun's contract. What the UFC should be doing in these situations, Brady, is saying, look, if you would have fought, you would have made this much. We're not going to let you ruin your legacy on our watch. So we'll give you a fucking job, whether it's announcing fights, whether it's, interviewing fighters, whether it's just going to events and taking pictures with fans and just do anything but allow Mauricio Shogun Rua to ruin what's an amazing legacy for one of the heroes of the sport, one of the pioneers of the sport. There was a Japanese fighter that posted on Twitter today his Pride contract, Brady. You remember Pride. Mm-hmm. And at the end, he posted the drug testing segment of the contract, and it said, if you test positive for marijuana, cocaine, heroin, barbiturates, you lose the fight. But if you piss hot for steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, we don't care. The contract for Pride, where Mauricio Shogun Rua used to fight, the contract explicitly said, go ahead and shoot up as many steroids as you want. We don't fucking care. But if you smoke a joint, we'll take your win away from you, which is exactly what happened to Nick Diaz when he beat Takanori Gomi. But the rest of these guys were going in there juiced to the gills, hopped up on goofballs, and fighting other steroided up maniacs for a living. Now Mauricio Shogun, who is 41 years old, 8 years past his prime, entirely too many miles on the tires. And they're flying a bum 10,000 miles to take an ass kicking that he might not even take. And he's a minus 200 favorite. Please don't bet this fight. This is not a UFC level fight. This is celebrity boxing at this point.
Is Ihor Potieria a bum?
Yes. Yes. And it's not Ihor Potieria would wipe the floor with me in a fight. He would wipe the floor with 99% of human beings who are his size, okay? But he's not a UFC level talent. And neither is Maurício Shogun Rua anymore. But they're making this fight because there's still fights left on Rua's contract. And that's why we're going to be forced to watch this. And by the way, Ovin St. Preux versus Maurício Shogun Rua was an affront to MMA fans everywhere. That was awful. Why are they letting him fight again after we just witnessed 15 minutes of garbage in his last fight?
That was bad. Luckily, Potieria at least has he's an exciting fighter. I don't think he's that good, but he's not going to go in there and OSP it. So I think it's going to be an exciting fight, maybe a sad fight, even if Shogun does get knocked out early. Kind of how I
Shogun starches this dude. I really do, because Shogun's a legend. Okay, but I mean, we saw how so many of these legends have went out the wrong way, Brady, and the UFC needs to be aware and cognizant of that. You need to, as these guys age, you need to protect their legacies, because they won't protect it themselves. They've only known fighting. It's up to the UFC to protect these guys' legacies and let them go out winners. Don't let it happen to what happened to BJ Penn, happen to all the rest of these guys, please.
Yeah. Agreed. Potieria minus 190, Shogun plus 165. The fight goes to decision plus 205. The fight doesn't go minus 265 there. So yeah, it should be a fight, and it should be a fight that is going to happen this Saturday for sure. All right, let's get to the main card. Before we do so, do want to remind you guys to become a member of Pub Sports Radio today. The link is right there. There's going to be some perks coming. I think it's like $5 a month to sign up. Be sure to do that. And then also subscribe to the channel. And then also check us out Wednesday for the DFS show. Me, Weezy, Monk, and Gordo. We go live at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Thank you all for hanging out. It does mean a ton seeing over 100 of you guys in here. I know we got football going on all day. Lots of great games today, so glad to have a decent crowd tonight. All right, Weezy, we're going to start with the first fight on the main card. They're opening it up with an absolute banger. We have Paul Craig going against Johnny Walker. We got Craig, 35 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. Johnny Walker, 30 years old, 6'6" with an 82-inch reach. We got Walker 5 years younger. Walker with a 3-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. Paul Craig is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a submission win over Godson Gimarad Antagulov, a knockout win against Shogun, a knockout win against Jamahal Hill, a submission win against Nikita Krylov, and then a decision loss to Volkan Oezdemir. As far as Johnny Walker, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss against Nikita Krylov, a knockout win against Ryan Spann, a decision loss to Thiago Santos, a knockout loss to Jamahal Hill, and then a submission win against Ion Kudalaba. So yeah, really looking forward to this fight. I see this really playing out one of two ways. I think either Johnny Walker knocks out Paul Craig, and I think that's the most likely scenario here. I think on the feet, it's Johnny Walker all day. I think Paul Craig has proved that he doesn't have much on the feet at all. He's going to want to get the fight down to the mat. The problem with that is I don't see him taking it down and being able to take down Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, a very big, very physically strong guy. If Paul Craig's going to get this fight down to the mat, he's going to do what Paul Craig does, and he's going to go out there and pull guard. I don't think he has the wrestling to take him down here. On the feet, it's Walker all day. He's much bigger. He has a massive reach advantage. He has power in both hands, his power in his knees. Johnny Walker should go out there and starch Paul Craig. My concern, though, and why I'm not laying this much chalk on Johnny Walker, is I can't trust him. Like, if he knocks down Paul Craig, I kind of have a feeling he might follow Craig to the ground. If Craig pulls guard, I kind of have a feeling that Johnny Walker is going to fall him to the ground. I don't think Johnny Walker is the smartest fighter. So the one way I see it playing out is Johnny Walker knocking out Paul Craig, or the other way I see it playing out is Johnny Walker making a mistake, going to the mat, getting comfortable, and getting caught in something. We've seen it time and time again with Paul Craig. But yeah, I think somebody gets starched here. I think it's pretty early as well. I don't have a ton of confidence in Johnny Walker, but I'll pick him to win by knockout. I had a lot more confidence in Volkan Oezdemir his last time out, but I got to go Walker here. I got to go by knockout, but you can never really count out Paul Craig against anybody. I mean, the guy beat Magman Ankalaev with like a second left. I mean, he could easily submit Johnny Walker if this fight hits the mat, if Walker makes a mistake. And I'm not trusting the fight IQ of Walker, like minus 200. What I do like, though, and I have already bet it, is the under 1.5. It's my biggest play of the night. Put 2.5 units on it. I'd be pretty surprised if this went over 7.5 minutes, just due to the fact that stylistically, a very dangerous striker in Walker, very dangerous grappler in Paul Craig. One guy is going to get their way, and I do lean Walker to get his way here with the knockout. Weezy, this is probably one of my favorite fights on the card. I'm a big Paul Craig fan. I love the guy's style. I love the guy's fights, and I love that he brings violence. I mean, the guy has 21 wins. He has been to a decision just once in his last Volkan Oezdemir fight outside of the draw with Shogun. But, typically I'm always betting violence in Paul Craig fights. It has always worked out besides that last fight with Oezdemir. That's the one time it didn't. But I'm going to get it back, and I think somebody gets starched here early on. Weezy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said. I mean, this is the dictionary definition of the type of fight that you look for violence. Two great finishers. A situation where you got a striker versus a grappler. So wherever the fight is taking place, one fighter is going to be way more dangerous than the other one. And, Johnny Walker has finished 5 of his 6 UFC wins. Paul Craig has finished 8 of his 8 UFC wins. So that you've got 13 of 14 UFC wins are inside the distance. Walker's been knocked out twice. Paul Craig has been finished 4 of 5 times. So you got guys that are getting finished in 4 and 6 of 9 UFC losses. So these guys definitely, are finishing inside the distance. Their under 1.5 rates are 62.5%. So 5 of 8, and that would be 15 of 24 of their combined UFC fights have finished under 1.5 rounds. So even at minus 155 for the under 1.5, which gives us a 60.78% implied probability for under 1.5. We're seeing that 62.5% of their fights have finished under 1.5. So you're even getting a 1.72% break from where the current line is to what the actual probability of the combined finish rates of these guys have been at the UFC level. So there's even value at minus 155 for the under 1.5 rounds here. Yeah, I mean, Walker's a very explosive striker, and Paul Craig, if he's on his back and he gets you in his guard, his ability to be able to finish fights from there is phenomenal. But the one thing that we've seen a lot in Paul Craig fights is that he's not getting submissions because he's got great wrestling. He takes people down, he passes, and then he works for the submission. He kind of thrives on other people's bad decisions, doesn't he, Brady? I mean, a lot of these subs that he's locking up, it's like Nikita Krylov put himself there. Magomed Ankalaev put himself there. Even Kennedy Nzechukwu fought really, really smart for about 2.5 rounds, but Paul kind of tried to fall to his back, and then Kennedy said, "You know what? I'll follow you there, and I'll pound you out." And he got caught too. It just seems to be like Paul's not a good enough wrestler, and he's not even good enough at pulling guard or taking the back standing or Imanari rolls to even get those positions. He really does rely on his opponents making bad decisions. And what do we say about bad haircuts, Brady? You make bad decisions in the barber chair. It's hard to make bad decisions in a steel cage when you're fighting for your life. And I could see Walker fucking this up, following him to the ground, trying to, finish in a spectacular way, and then winding up in that trademark triangle choke there of Paul Craig's and tapping out. So it's a fascinating fight. I don't think I have. What's the money line on this?
Walker's got smashed over the last couple of days. So Walker opened at minus 150, is now minus 200. Paul Craig sitting at plus 170 now. He opened up plus 130.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of feel like just take that sub prop, for Paul Craig, because he's just not a minute winner. He can't wrestle effectively, and while this is on the feet, he gets pieced up by somebody as dynamic and unusual as Johnny Walker. But the thing about Walker with the jump knees and the spinning shit and the crazy kicks is that you can get taken down off of that shit if you're not careful. So, I'd be careful betting that Walker side. I think he gets the job done because Paul Craig really is a sub or bust guy. But I think that the sub is going to be like 90% of Craig's win equity, and the books are going to be onto it. And the knockout is going to be the same for Walker. So this might be a hard fight to bet, but I think the books are kind of on what the easy spots are here.
Yep, agreed. Agreed. Man, yeah. Well, Craig inside the distance right now is only plus 230. His money line's plus 170. So they know for sure. And then Walker inside the distance is already minus 135 and probably going to keep climbing there as well. So yeah, clear violent spot in this one. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have Jéssica Andrade going against Lauren Murphy, the very handsome Jéssica Andrade. She's 31 years old, 5'1" with a 62-inch reach. Lauren Murphy, 31 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Andrade, 8 years younger. Murphy with a 4-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Murphy, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. A decision win against Roxanne Modafferi, a submission win against a very handsome and unfortunately cut Aaliyah Shakarova. Had a beautiful head of hair on her. And then she won a split decision against Joanne Calderwood, and then had that knockout loss to Valentina Shevchenko, and then a decision win against Misha Tater last time out. Andrade 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss to Rose Namajunas, a knockout win against Caitlin Chukagian, a knockout loss to Valentina, a knockout win against Cynthia Calvillo, a submission win against Amanda Lemos her last time out. Like when Andrade is losing recently, it's against the best of the best. It's against Rose in a close decision. It's against Valentina. It's against Zhang Wei Li. She's fighting the best of the best. And man, I don't think Lauren Murphy falls under that category whatsoever. I've always been really low on Lauren Murphy, and now she's about 40 years old. This should be Jéssica Andrade all day. I'm not really looking forward to laying like minus 300 or whatever she is. Oh my gosh, she's minus 500 now. I'm not really looking forward to laying that price tag, but it's really hard to pick against her here. I was kind of maybe thinking about like the inside the distance, but even then, like Jéssica Andrade as of late, it's kind of changed up her style a little bit. Like early in the early days of Jéssica Andrade, she fought like an absolute boulder, like just walking forward, with no regard to anything, any striking defense, anything like that. I think she's kind of sharpened up a little bit. She's taken it a little bit slower. She's taken her time. And Lauren Murphy's very tough as well. So that kind of has me staying away from the violence props in this one. Lauren Murphy, 21 fights, only been knocked out once, and it was against Valentina in the 4th round. So I could see like an Andrade decision here. But yeah, this should be Andrade. I'm not picking against her. But I'm also not laying minus 500 on her. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Well, between 2013 and 2015, when Andrade was young in the UFC, she was fighting at 135 pounds because there was no strawweight division, because there was no flyweight division, But since then, she's never lost to anybody that wasn't a champion in either weight class. Her 4 losses since she finally got to move down to 115, and then she bounces around between 115 and 125 now. But 4 losses to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Zhang Wei Li, Rose Namajunas, Valentina Shevchenko, all 4 of them champions. And then you see the wins over the gatekeepers that you need to beat in order to get to those championship fights. Amanda Lemos at 115, Calvillo at 125, Chukagian at 125, a win over Rose Namajunas, Kovalkiewicz back in 2018, Tisha Torres, Claudia Gadelha, Angela Hill, Joanne Calderwood, Jessica Penne. So, she's been at 115 dominating for a while. But the one thing that Lauren Murphy she's just always there, right? I mean, even the fights that she loses against Shevchenko, took Shevchenko 4 rounds to finish her. She lost a unanimous decision to Sijara Eubanks after being outcontrolled by 280 seconds. So about 4 minutes, 40 seconds of control time that Eubanks piled up on her. She got a victory over Lauren. And then Chukagian, even though Lauren outcontrolled her by over 3 minutes, Chukagian outstruck her at distance, outstruck her 45-38 in that fight, but a very close fight. So the thing about laying minus 500 against an opponent in Lauren Murphy, who's only been finished once at the UFC level, and it was by Valentina Shevchenko in the 4th round. boy, we just saw Ketlin Vieira get robbed, straight robbed in the Pennington fight. And I had no money on it, Brady. I mean, you and I, we told everybody last week on Stat Diggers, please don't bet that fight. It's going to be close. It's going to be greasy, and the wrong fighter probably wins. And we both stayed away from it. And sometimes that's winning in gambling, just understanding what fights to stay away from so you don't get screwed. But this looks like a situation where you might be able to get Lauren Murphy by decision at plus 600, put a very small amount of money on it. Lauren Murphy's just always there. You know, she can get takedowns. She can keep things close at distance. And Jéssica's not the best minute winner, Brady. She's explosive. She's a finisher. We can see that at the UFC level, Jéssica Andrade has finished 57% of her wins, you know, so that's 6 wins by decision, and she's lost inside the distance 5 of 7 times. So she's 6-2 in decisions, and Lauren Murphy is 5-3. So, you know, both of them are winning decisions here. So it's going to be an interesting fight, but we could see either one of these ladies get takedowns. But it's Andrade with the worst takedown defense, but it's Murphy who gives up a little more control time on the ground. And when you look at the strength of schedule overall, it's really Andrade's wins that jump off the page. A 1.5 ratio in Andrade's wins compared to a 0.86 ratio in Lauren Murphy's wins. And Andrade is beating the more experienced competition as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think it should be Jéssica here. But Lauren Murphy's very durable, so it doesn't look like there's a lot on the Jéssica Andrade side that's going to tickle my fancy in the betting. So I think it's either a stay away or you take a shot on Murphy, keeping it close, and then maybe lucky Lauren Murphy gets another decision to go her way, and you wind up clipping a nice little plus money bet.
Yep, they call her lucky for a reason, because a lot of times she gets these decision wins that she probably doesn't deserve. And this could happen too if it goes to distance. I mean, these judges, man. But yeah, Andrade minus 530, minus 500, minus 475. Lauren Murphy like plus 375. Murphy by decision, by the way, is plus 615. Yeah, I can't bet anything on this one. I think Andrade should win this fight, but yikes.
Laying juice on women's MMA is something that you and I have really left in the rearview mirror, Brady, and we're both much happier for it. And consequently, as a result of making that decision, it's been so much easier to just say, yeah, when I see a big plus money number on a women's fight, I'm more likely to take it because it just happens all the damn time. So, but, you know, if this were a contest on handsome, I mean, Jéssica Andrade would be an even bigger favorite. But it's not that. It's going to be a fight, and there are going to be UFC judges, one of which scored 10-9 for Raquel Pennington in round 1 last night. So, I mean, like, if this fight does go the full 3 rounds and you're holding a Jéssica Andrade ticket, you're probably going to be terrified.
Yep, I agree. And, yeah, by the way, Jéssica Andrade, pound for pound, the most handsome fighter on the card.
There's no question about it. She's just got perfect features. Great haircut that you can set your watch to. Every once in a while, she dyes it a very fun color. She's a great dancer. She's a fantastic fighter. Great personality. Love Jéssica Andrade. And talk about handsome, it's a 10 out of 10 there too.
Yep. I personally put Andrade number 1, Josiane Nunez number 2, and then Shamil number 3, because we're talking pound for pound.
Yeah, and Shamil's going to get his pretty face messed up if he does show up for this fight. And he's 41, so he's not getting any better looking. But if you guys don't know what we're talking about, just go check out Shamil Abdur-Rahimov's Tapology picture, and you'll know why we think he's one of the 3 most handsome people in the entire UFC.
Yep, doesn't get much more handsome than that. All right, Weezy, a couple more fights to go. We have Gilbert Burns going against Neil Magny. We got Gilbert Burns, 36 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. Neil Magny, 35 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Burns, 1 year older. It's going to be Magny with a 5-inch height advantage and a 9-inch reach advantage. Burns is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Damian Maia, decision win against Woodley. Knockout loss to Usman, decision win against Stephen Thompson, very good win there, and then a decision loss against Khamzat Chimaev, giving Chimaev his most competitive fight to date, and honestly a pretty competitive fight, to be honest. Neil Magny, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, decision loss to Michael Chiesa, a decision win against Jeff Neal, a decision win against Max Griffin, a submission loss to Shavkat, and then a submission win against Danny Rodriguez. And I think it's a good bounce back spot here for Gilbert Burns. Burns, his last 2 losses, Khamzat Chimaev, no shame in that. Kamaru Usman, no shame in that whatsoever. And I feel like stylistically, this is a matchup that he really should win. I know he's going to be at a huge height and reach disadvantage, but he's going to want to get this fight down to the mat. And that's just something Neil Magny has struggled with throughout his career. A 57% takedown defense. And, Gilbert Burns, one of the best grapplers in the division. He should be able to get this fight down to the mat. And when he does, man, Neil Magny has been submitted 5 times in his career. And I think it very well could be 6. Like, you do not want Gilbert Burns on top of you. So I like Burns here quite a bit. The money line is super chalky, but to improve that money line, I'm going to be taking a look at maybe Burns inside the distance or the sub prop, just due to the fact that Magny's been submitted like 5 times in his career. He's been knocked out a couple as well. I like Burns inside the distance on this one. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, first of all, let's just talk about the measurables here. Is Magny's a year younger, 5 inches taller, and has a 9-inch reach advantage. And, he's got 10 more pro fights, about 200 more minutes almost in the pro cage. He's got 9 more fights at the UFC level, about 150 more minutes in the UFC cage. So just be careful of that if you're on that Burns side. That, remember, Burns is 36. Okay, 36-year-old welterweight. He's getting up there just like Magny is. And Magny's the more experienced guy. He's the taller guy. He's the longer guy. And Neil Magny always has impeccable conditioning. But it's Gilbert Burns who's finishing at a 62% clip at the UFC level, while for Magny it's 37%. And Gilbert Burns has never been finished. And this dude's been in there with Khamzat. A guy who prior to that fight had a 100% finish rate, I believe. This is a guy who's very, very durable, and it's a bad matchup for Magny. On the feet, Gilbert's got a ton of power, and we've seen Magny get dropped 8 times at the UFC level. And Magny only has 57% takedown defense at the UFC level, and he's giving up 31% control time over a massive sample size of 27 UFC fights and 358 minutes in the cage. So we're looking at like 110 minutes that Neil Magny has been controlled on 39 takedowns. So if Gilbert is getting takedowns here, and we know that he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, I believe at the black belt level, Brady. So this guy's grappling is absolutely no joke. But he is more of a natural 155-pounder. It's Magny who's the natural welterweight here. Gilbert Burns, better ratio overall when it comes to the strength of schedule, and Magny's fighting more experienced competition. But Burns' wins are a little bit better, and the losses are probably a little bit better as well. But both of these guys fight elite guys. Magny might be able to keep this at distance and use his volume, his jab, to win minutes on the feet. And if, Burns is unable to take him down or land a big shot, hey, this could be a lot closer than what the line thinks it is. And let's not forget that, Gilbert Burns has 28 takedowns in 18 fights, 25% control time for, but, that's a 35% takedown accuracy. The guy's not like this killer wrestler. Because Magny has been in there with some really good wrestlers. It's a great fight. It's a super high level fight. It's a great stylistic matchup, but Gilbert Burns is just so much more dangerous in all aspects. On the feet, he's got more power. On the ground, he's definitely the more dangerous submission grappler, even though Magny's got that length. A guy like Gilbert Burns that's never been finished, it's going to be really hard for Neil Magny to find a knockout or a sub against this guy. And Magny is a good minute winner, but Gilbert Burns is so explosive, I got to think that he gets the job done here. And like you said, he probably does get it done inside the distance because Neil Magny's been finished in 6 of his 8 UFC losses. So if you do, get to Magny, he does find that door more times than he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm leaning the Burns route. Like him a lot, but man, I mean the line, they're all over it. He opened up minus 285, he's now minus 430, and then Neil Magny opened up plus 245, he's currently plus 360. So if I was to bet Burns, I would be taking a look at his inside the distance, which is plus 155. Not sure if I'm going to get there or not, but yeah, I do like Burns to get the sub. And if you like Magny, you probably like him by decision, which is plus 550 there. Those are kind of the ways I'd be attacking this one. But yeah, give me Burns for the dub here, and probably by submission at some point.
Yeah, I think so too, because Magny has been subbed 4 times at the UFC level, and we know what Burns's submission game is lethal. So yeah, either way, but he could get a knockout as well. I do like Burns inside the distance.
By the way, FanDuel, I'm not sure what they're doing. They opened up the Ferreira Rodrigues over under, and they messed it up. They put under 2 rounds. And they put it at minus 112. I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're probably going to void it anyway. So
yeah,
I wish they open up the under 2.5 at minus 112. My goodness, but they put under 2 rounds for some reason.
yeah, that doesn't make any sense because they do the fight doesn't start bets. So like that's clearly just a mess up there on their part.
Yeah, and I did bet it a little bit, but I'm almost guaranteeing they're going to avoid it. I put like $1 on it to see if they're going to void it or not, but they're going to void it. All right, so we'll move on to the co-main event here. We have Deiveson Figueiredo going against Brandon Moreno. The 4th fight here. You know, we've seen these guys fight for the last couple years, and 4 fights in a row. My goodness. Figueiredo, he's 35 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Moreno, 29 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach. Moreno, 6 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. So I think teletape's pretty interesting here. Moreno, 6 years younger. Figueiredo is getting up there in age for the flyweight division, 35 years old. And also another big thing is the weight cut. Like, his weight cut is not getting any easier. He's actually struggled on the scales the last couple times. Not the last time. He went to Fight Ready. The weight cut looked good there. But prior to that, he struggled on the scale against Benavidez in one of those fights. He struggled on the scale against Moreno. I think he ended up in the hospital one night before one of their fights. So the weight cut's not getting any easier for Deiveson Figueiredo, and that's something to kind of take note of there. Figueiredo, he's 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Submission win over Joseph Benavidez, a submission win over Alex Perez, draw against Moreno, submission loss against Moreno, decision win against Moreno. Moreno is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Royval, draw against Figgy, submission against Figgy, and then a decision loss against Figgy. And then as far as the next fight, he knocked out Kai Kara France there. I've picked Deiveson Figueiredo in all 3 fights. I picked him to win in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fight. But I think I might switch it up here just due to the fact that he is now 35 years old, and the weigh-ins are going to be huge for me here. I want to see how Deiveson Figueiredo looks on the scale. I was checking out his Instagram, and I think he might have moved away from Fight Ready. I have not seen him at Fight Ready, which is a pretty big concern for me. I like that fit for him there at Fight Ready. So if he's not there, I don't really love that. So I don't love the age. I don't love the weight cut. I don't love the volume. Like in their last fight, Brandon Moreno was outlanding him in the majority of the rounds. It's just Figgy won those rounds based off of the knockdowns. If he did not get those knockdowns, he was not going to win those rounds. And I had a bet on Figgy at plus money, and that was a close fight. That was a very, very close fight. If Figgy doesn't land if he lands 2 knockdowns, he probably loses the fight. And on the flip side, I like a lot of things on the Moreno side. I like the volume. I like the cardio. I like that he's younger. I like the toughness, the durability. The guy has 28 fights, never been finished in his entire career. So I think I might switch sides here, Weezy. I've picked Deiveson 3 times. I think I might switch sides and go Brandon Moreno here and see what happens. Just due to the fact that Figgy is getting up there in age. But I do need to see the weigh-ins. If Figgy looks like crap, I'll have a little bit more confidence on Moreno. If he shows up, looks good, it's probably a close fight. I mean, this fight's going to be a close fight no matter what, right? So give me Moreno for the slight upset, but I don't know if I'm going to be betting it. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this co-main event that we get to see for the 4th time?
I tend to agree with you, man. I had money on Figueiredo last time, dude, and it was probably my best bet of my tracked career up to that point when I got Deiveson Figueiredo to win by decision at plus 700 in the last fight. Only put a half unit on it. That was a 3.5 unit win. Crazy win there. And Brandon Moreno has a legendary level of durability here. And I won't be making an official pick on this fight until I see both fighters on the scale, because like everything that Brady said, 35 years of old for Deiveson. Weight cuts don't get easier at that age. He's a huge flyweight, so it's going to be difficult for him to make weight no matter what. So I need to see what Deiveson Figueiredo looks like on the scale. We've just seen too many times him show up and have very difficult weight cuts for us to not be cognizant of that very important piece of information that we need before we make a bet on this fight, in my opinion. Because this fight has happened so many times already, I'm not expecting any big line movements between now and the weigh-ins. So I think it's very safe to just wait on this one until we see what Deiveson Figueiredo looks like on the scale. Even though Deiveson got the nod in that last fight, I think that Brandon probably won the minutes. It's just that Deiveson was landing the big shots, and he was getting some knockdowns at the end of rounds, but there were rounds that he was losing. So what happens if Deiveson doesn't land those big shots? I think Brandon Moreno probably beats him here, and he might even cruise because he's 6 years younger, 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. He's actually got more pro fights. He's got more and just as many fights at the UFC level as Deiveson, and he's actually got more minutes in the UFC cage. In terms of striking, we just see that power advantage is there for Deiveson. But if he's going to rely on that power, and we can't count on him to win minutes on the ground here, because if we look at the advanced stats, Deiveson outcontrolled him in the last fight, 138 seconds to 46. But before that, Deiveson 90 seconds of control time, Moreno 290. And then the fight before that, 55 seconds of control time for Deiveson, 200 seconds of control time for Moreno. So in these fights, Deiveson has been 5 of 16 on his takedown attempts. Brandon has been 7 of 12. 5 of 16 for Deiveson, 7 of 12 for Moreno. So not only is Moreno getting more takedowns, but he's getting them on less attempts. And Moreno has 534 seconds of control time. It's 283 for Deiveson. So Moreno's out-controlling him at about a 2-to-1 ratio. He's getting takedowns at a higher percentage. He's shot less, and he's gotten more. So I kind of feel, Brady, like unless Deiveson is landing knockdowns here, he's not going to win enough minutes to win this fight. So I'm leaning towards a Brandon Moreno by decision here. But like I said, got to see Deiveson on the scale. Got to find out if he is at fight ready for this camp or not, and see what's going on from there. But once this weigh-in, once we have that information, I think it'll be a lot easier to bet this fight.
Yeah, we gotta wait for Friday. Curious to see if I think he will make the weight, but man, he cuts so much weight. I mean, he's a huge flyweight. So we're going to see how he looks there. Pretty closely lined fight, like you said. It's a straight pick'em, minus 110 each way. It actually opened up. Wow, it opened up January 6th on Bet Online at minus 110 each way, and it hasn't moved anything at all. Still minus 110. So honestly, It probably stays around a pick'em, to be honest, throughout the week.
I don't see why not, right? I mean, we're 1-1-1 here. We got to draw. We got to win for Moreno, and we got to win for Deiveson. So these guys are so well matched. But Father Time is undefeated, and Moreno is 6 years younger and just as experienced. So I think that this might be Brandon Moreno's time.
Yeah, I think so as well. Somebody talking about the draw in the chat, plus 6,600 potentially.
Not a bad look, man. They're well matched.
Oh yeah, I know.
And there could be 10-8 rounds for either of them, so that's not a bad look, man.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes to decision, it's probably going to be another close fight. So it should be a fun co-main event here that we're going to get to see for the fourth time and hopefully the last time. I think I've seen enough of these two, to be honest, together. All right, main event, we have the vacant light heavyweight championship. We have Jamahal Hill going against Glover Teixeira. Jamahal Hill, 31 years old, 6'4", 79-inch reach. Glover Teixeira, 43 years old, 6'2", with a 76-inch reach. We have Jamahal Hill, 12 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Tail of the tape, heavily in favor of Hill here. Teixeira, I can't believe he's still doing it, man. At 43 years old, I think he's maybe the third oldest fighter on the roster behind Arlovsky, who's like 44, 45, and I know Guido Canetti's like 44. I think he's like third there. But yeah, it's crazy to see him still competing at this level at 43 years old. Teixeira, he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had a split decision win against Nikita Krylov, a knockout win against Anthony Smith, submission win against Santos, submission win against Blachowicz, and then a submission loss in one of the best fights I've ever seen in Yuri Prochazka. As far as Jamahal Hill, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Ovince St. Preux, a knockout loss against Paul Craig, a knockout win against Jimmy Crute, a knockout win against Johnny Walker, and then a knockout win against Thiago Santos. So I've always thought there was this hole in the game of Jamahal Hill, and that hole being the takedown defense. We saw him get taken down 6 times by Darko Stosic, and I was kind of waiting for somebody to test this guy's takedown defense, and nobody would do it. OSP stood and struck with them. Paul Craig pulled guard and subbed him. Jimmy Crute went out there and tested his striking. We remember that. And then Johnny Walker went out there and got knocked out early. Thiago Santos actually went out there and tested the takedown defense of Hill, and we saw Thiago Santos take down Jamahal Hill 6 times, which is a huge concern. Thiago Santos, in his entire UFC career, he's only gotten more than 1 takedown twice in the UFC. Once was against Jamahal Hill, the other against Kevin Holland. But that was the most takedowns he's ever landed in that fight against Jamahal Hill. I don't think Jamahal Hill has the best takedown defense, but what I will say, I think his get-up game is very, very good. But if Glover Teixeira takes down Jamahal Hill, it's going to get very interesting very fast. Glover Teixeira, even at 43 years old, he has really good wrestling. He has incredible grappling, incredible ground and pound. If Glover Teixeira gets on top of you, it's a problem. On the feet, of course, you have to favor Jamahal Hill. The guy's striking is very good. I love the volume. I love the power he brings. So we got kind of like a striker versus grappler matchup. Jamahal Hill is going to want to keep this on the feet. Glover Teixeira is going to want to get this fight down to the mat. I think it's a very, very good fight here, Weezy. A fight that I do think is going to finish one way or another, whether it's Jamahal Hill knocking out Glover Teixeira or Glover Teixeira taking this fight down to the mat and getting a TKO or a sub. So, curious to your thoughts on this one, Weezy. A phenomenal main event here.
Phenomenal main event. What a great fight. Really happy to see Glover back after that absolute classic against Yuri. And Jamahal Hill getting the shine that he deserves. 7-1 in the UFC so far. Finished 5 of those 7 wins by knockout. The only guy to beat him is Paul Craig. Paul Craig basically submitted him, but it's called a knockout. But either way, this is a great fight. And I'll be honest with you. If Glover Teixeira is 38 years old here, I'm max betting him. Because of what you said, Brady. Jamahal Hill is a guy who has phenomenal striking, just phenomenal. He uses his length really well. He's got crazy power. The amount of volume that he throws on the feet is terrifying. He's really got a really good mixed martial arts game because he doesn't have great jiu-jitsu at UFC level jiu-jitsu, and he doesn't have great wrestling defense, but he pops up every damn time. When you take him down, he is not satisfied with being there, and he will do what he needs to do to get back up. He got back up several times against Thiago Santos, but that's not Thiago's game. Takedowns and ground and pound is Glover Teixeira's game. As a matter of fact, look what Glover Teixeira did to Thiago Santos. And then go look at what Thiago Santos did on the ground to Jamahal Hill. If Glover winds up in some of those positions that Thiago was in against Jamahal, it's game over. But Glover is 43 years old. And this kid Hill is only 31, and he's getting better. Only 13 professional fights for Jamahal Hill. 13, Brady. And the 14th fight is going to be for the fucking title. That's amazing. Think about that. When was the last time we saw somebody challenge for a title with 14 professional fights where their name wasn't Alex Pereira? I mean, really, it's been a long time. So Jamahal Hill is definitely on that championship trajectory. But I don't think his game is complete enough because you can do this. You can do this with certain fighters where if you mask their weak spot long enough, people forget that there's a weak spot there. Like Adrian Yannis at 135. This is clearly a guy that the UFC wants winning, but they've never put him in there against anybody that could wrestle their way out of a brown paper bag. And if they give him 3 more strikers, people are just going to forget that Adrian Yannis has never grappled at the UFC level. And the first time he gets a grappler, he could wind up looking bad. Well, I think that this is the very same situation here. You look at what Glover Teixeira does on the ground to great Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, great fighters. He's destroying these dudes. I mean, Anthony Smith is a guy, who is a, ultra veteran with double-digit wins by submission to his credit, and he got absolutely the shit kicked out of him by Glover on the ground. It wasn't even close. And, you look at Glover's strength of schedule here, it's better than Jamal's pretty much everywhere. And Glover's striking is no joke either. So Glover does have to get this fight to the ground, though, because if he doesn't, over a 5-round fight, Hill's youth, his length, his power, and his volume is just going to be way too much for Glover. But we can't assume that Jamal has plugged this hole in his ground game. And we also can't forget that he put himself into Paul Craig's guard. Hopefully he learned from that, but there's no indication that he has yet, Brady. So I think Glover can win this fight. The one thing that's really keeping me from backing up the truck here, because I love the stylistic matchup for Glover so much, is the age difference, is the size difference, the youth, the power. All those things that are in favor of Jamahal Hill could mask the fact that that Glover is going to be the much better wrestler, grappler, and BJJ player here. But if the fight doesn't get to the ground, I think Jamal makes it look easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I see a lot of people talking about the age, and that's a valid point, but I feel like we've been saying that for like 3 or 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
Like, Glover's 40. How's he going to beat Anthony Smith? Glover's 41. How is he going to beat Santos? He's 42. How's he going to beat Jan Blachowicz, right? So I don't know, man. Everybody seems to always count out Glover Teixeira, even though he's 43 years old. I mean, I went back and watched the Ihor fight. He showed a lot of good things in that matchup. I mean, lots of takedowns. He almost finished the fight several times, showed great durability. I mean, he ate some crazy shots in there. But yeah, the age, it is scary, but it's been scaring me for like 3 or 4 years at this point. So I don't know how much to freaking look into that. It's a closely line fight. We have Teixeira -105, Hill -115. Hill actually opened up as a -150 favorite. Money's been coming in on Teixeira. I'm curious to see where this fight goes throughout the week. I was thinking violence here, but they're all over it, as the violence is -515 for the fight doesn't go to decision. Don't love that. I was thinking maybe like an under like 2.5 or 3.5, but they're all over that and more. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to have a bet on this fight, but if I do, it's probably a small poke on maybe a Teixeira inside the distance or something on this one. I also thought maybe about the over 1.5 rounds at -116 on FanDuel, just due to the fact that I think both guys are very tough. I think Jamahal Hill has a good chin. I think Teixeira has a very good chin as well. And I can see this fight getting extended a little bit, but I do think there's a finish eventually. Anything sticking out to you in this main event, Weezy?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think what we do this week is we're going to parlay fight doesn't go to decision for Teixeira Hill, and then also for Craig and Walker, and we'll get that at -400. And then we can put 4 units on that parlay to win 1. How does that sound, Brady?
Down. I'm down.
Isn't there one other one like Rodrigues Ferreira, or no, the Terrence McKinney fight, right? So we could get like a 3-fight doesn't go to decision parlay, and it's probably still like -200 because that's how favored these fights are to finish inside the distance.
Wait, listen to this one.
Okay.
We have a four-legger violence parlay. Bonfim McKinney fight doesn't go to decision.
All right.
Jalkin Almeida, the handsome Shamil fight doesn't go to decision. Walker Craig fight doesn't go to decision. And then the main event, Hill Teixeira fight doesn't go to decision. It comes out to -123.
It's not even plus money.
No.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Exactly.
What could go wrong? Absolutely nothing, right?
Yes.
Oh, God. Yeah, that makes it rough, you know. I mean, we have to be cognizant of those kind of things, you know. Like, yeah, those fights probably all four of them probably finish inside the distance 80% of the time or something. I mean, it really does. But my God, when you're laying 4-leg parlays for minus money, it's such a bad, long-term strategy. It's going to work every once in a while, obviously, but my God, man, imagine that. So, we gotta be creative. We gotta dig a little bit deeper this week, Brady, because these lines have been out for a while. A lot of them have already moved, and a lot of the value's been taken from them.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Propaholic like today. I'm like, man, these lines have been out for a while, and kind of like last card, like the lines were just wild, and it's kind of the same thing with this one. Like they Bet Online opened up these over unders last week, and 5 dimes they opened up these props like last week as well. So they've been hit all week. All the value is slowly just leaving. So yeah, another week with wide lines. We got Burns minus 430, Andrade minus 500, Almeida minus 1,000. Just really wide lines this week. Nunez minus 550 as well. So yeah, another kind of a week where a couple spots sticking out, but man, some of these lines again.
And Zara Fair not showing up to the fight is minus 10,000.
Goodness, minus 10,000?
Minus 10,000. She's not showing up. I mean, I don't even think she has a plane ticket yet.
Probably not.
Would you show up to fight Joe Benavidez if you were 39 years old and hadn't won a fight since you were in high school, Brady? Would you really show up for that ass whooping if it cost you fucking $5,000 to just fly to get there? Come on, man. No chance.
I'll tell you who I'm not showing up against, and that's Jonathan Almeida.
Oh, God. My God. That dude twist me into a pretzel.
I would not blame Shamil. Shamil, if you want to pull out, it's cool. You're 41. You've been finished your last 3 times. We get it. Yeah. Just stop booking the fight.
Yeah, and if Shamil does show up to this one, they better give him Harry Hunsucker the next time out. Just let him go out on a win, because the guy's been a company man showing up for ass kickings that no 41-year-old should show up for.
Yeah, I agree. But Weezy, we did it. We're going to finish just around 2 hours. Pretty good pacing for the show there. 15 fights. Yeah, all that's left is let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout this week for some UFC content.
Absolutely. So you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. Every Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, we do Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. Break down all 15 of these fights from a tape study and stats perspective. I'll give you all my tracked bets. Finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Wednesday night, I go live on Uncle Weezy's channel for Ask Weezy, where you can ask me questions about any of the over-unders, any of the stats, any of the stuff that I have in my database. You can find me on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers, every Wednesday for the DFS show, every Saturday for the Watch Along. And you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel with my guy DFS by the Numbers tomorrow at 4:30 Central Time. We go live an hour before Clint goes live on Pub Sports Radio to give you a data-driven look at all the time props on this card. They have dropped. We're going to find a couple spots that stick out, give you a probability parlay, which I believe hit last week, and try to find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 283, Brady. Let's go.
Let's do it. Should be a really fun card. I thought last night's card was really fun. I think we have another really fun card on our hands. 15 fights, hoping all 15 stay on. If there's one to fall off, maybe take off the Shogun fight. I don't think we need to see that. But yeah, looking forward to it overall. You guys can find me on Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. Check out my YouTube channel, DFS by the numbers. I'm going to be getting out my prediction video tomorrow. And then also, once again, guys, be sure to check out the... Let me pull it up here for the link. Pub Sports Radio. Become a member, guys. It's going to be pretty cool. We're going to have stuff coming in the very near future, so make sure you get in early because there's going to be some really cool stuff coming. But yeah, subscribe, like the video, all the good stuff. Best of luck for UFC 283. Let us make some money and enjoy the fight. Should be a phenomenal pay-per-view. See you guys later.